This is the digital channel of the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. I am Manoj Mainkar, and in the next half hour, I'll bring to you news updates from India and around the world, awareness videos on coronavirus by Government of India, and a lot more. We'll begin with the news updates.
This is the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. Namaskar. The news snippets. Read by Maria Albina Michael. 677,423 people have recovered from COVID-19 in the country. In the last 24 hours, 23,702 people have recovered. In the national capital, Delhi, recoveries have crossed 100,000. 358,127 people were tested for COVID-19 in the past 24 hours. Total tests done in the country till now is 13.7 million. Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh reported the maximum number of cases in the last 24 hours. Centre to send a multidisciplinary team to Bihar to help the state government in ramping up protocols for fighting the pandemic. Centre has also asked Assam and West Bengal for strict monitoring of the COVID-19 situation in both states. Union Finance and Corporate Affairs Minister Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman attended the third G20 meeting of finance ministers and central bank governors through video conference. The meeting was presided over by Saudi Arabia. Mrs. Sitharaman discussed the global economic scenario in light of the evolving COVID-19 pandemic. India has lodged a strong protest with the Pakistani Shahs-e-Fair in New Delhi on the killing of 3 civilians due to unprovoked firing along the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir. Pakistan has been violating the ceasefire agreement frequently. Bihar and Assam are reeling under floods. People in both states have been moved to safer places. More than 1.6 lakh hectares of agricultural land are inundated in Assam. India and the US have agreed for research in new areas on transformational power generation based on supercritical carbon dioxide power cycles and advanced clean coal technologies. 4 million people in Barcelona have been asked to stay at home as COVID-19 cases have spiked again. Spain has seen a new cluster of cases after lifting off a 3-month-long lockdown. Syria is holding elections today to elect a new parliament amid the civil war, economic woes and the coronavirus pandemic. The elections were scheduled in April but were postponed due to the COVID-19 situation in the country. And that is the end of the news snippets.
Number 1, 100% cotton material, 4 pieces of cloth strips. Number 2, scissors. Number 3, sewing machine. To begin with, cutting fabric. Cut the face cover at the following sizes as required. Adult 9 inch into 7 inch, child 7 inch into 5 inch. Cutting strips. Cut a 4 strips of tying and piping from the cloth. 2 pieces at 1.5 inch and 5 inch and 2 pieces at 1.5 into 40 inch. Attach the 1.5 inch into 5 inch strip to be used as piping to the cut fabric on one end. Create 3 downward facing pleats of approximately 1.5 inch each by folding the cloth. Turn the pleated cloth to the other side. Repeat steps for pleating on this side. Once the pleats have been made, the height of the pleated cloth will be reduced from 9 inch to 5 inch. Secure the pleats with piping on both sides. Take extra care to keep all pleats facing downward as shown. Attach the 40-inch strips used for tying the face cover to the top and bottom of the face cover. Fold both these strips 3 times and stitch as shown in these images. Your homemade face cover is ready for use. "100% cotton fabric or a men's cotton handkerchief, 2 rubber bands." Step 1. Fold the cloth or handkerchief from one side to little above the middle of the cloth. Step 2. Fold over the other edge to go above the first fold. Step 3. Fold the cloth or handkerchief again evenly from the middle as shown in the image. Step 4. Using a rubber band, tie it on its left side of the cloth. Step 5. Tie the other side with another rubber band. Ensure the area in the middle of the 2 rubber bands is big enough to cover your mouth and nose. Step 6. Take one edge of the cloth on the side of the rubber band and fold over it. Do this for both sides. Step 7. Take one fold and insert into the other fold. Your homemade face cover is ready for use. Take any plastic bag at home, clean it thoroughly with soap and water. Let it dry well on both sides. Keep your extra clean face cover in this clean bag. Keep it sealed well. Now you can rotate your face covers for daily use.
This is the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. We now bring you a special film-based program from our archives.
Mention the word V. Shantaram and cinegoers across the country start thinking of films steeped in Indian culture, stories emanating from Indian values and costumes distinctly traditional. Yes, V. Shantaram was that wonderful filmmaker who gave our cinegoers pride in their own culture. Soon after independence, when the nation was still in many ways influenced by the British language and culture, V. Shantaram took it upon himself to remind his countrymen and women that much before the British came and ran down everything Indian, we as a nation had a past to boast of, be it Jhanak Jhanak Payal Baje or Navrang, or later Jal Bin Machli Nirtya Bin Bijli. His heart was always in the right place, with his films expressing our own culture, our own traditions. Of course, they were steeped in the classical dances and music of the country, which helped them stay in people's memory many years after they were first screened. Indeed, as his daughter Madhura Jasraj, who also happens to be the wife of noted classical artist Pandit Jasraj, said recently, "Very few directors have projected Indian culture the way V. Shantaram did. Though he often claimed he didn't understand music, he had a very good sense of rhythm and an intuitive understanding of the subject. He had a good sense which always prevailed upon the film. He always favored raga-based compositions. Similarly, he was a fine dancer and all his steps were distinctly Indian. He showed Indian dances on the big screen and wove tales around them in films like Jhanak Jhanak Payal Baje and Navrang." The films were all blockbusters, with Sandhya in particular going on to have a successful career, largely because of these films. The roots of such movies, and indeed of V. Shantaram's evolution, go back all the way to the 1920s, when he started off doing odd jobs in Maharashtra Film Company, owned by Baburam Painter. Born in Kolhapur, V. Shantaram did not have formal education or film training. He in fact once worked as a daily wager in the railways and started his career in theatres as a mere curtain puller with the Gandharv Natak Company. Later he joined Baburao Painter's Maharashtra Film Company and learned the intricacies of filmmaking from him. Initially, he directed his first film Netaji Palkar way back in 1927. In 1929, along with four partners V. G. Damle, K. R. Dhaibar, S. Fateh and S. B. Kulkarni, he formed Prabhat Film Company in Kolhapur. These men were all skillful but lacked financial muscle. However, their sound knowledge helped them run the studio successfully. They started in the silent era, but when films became talkies, nothing shone brighter than Prabhat Studio. In 1932, V. Shantaram made Ayodhya Ka Raja in Marathi, in which Durga Khote made her debut as Taramati. It was the first Marathi talkie and made only a year after Ardesher Irani's much talked about Alam Ara. In 1933, Shantaram again came close to making a record when he took his film Serendhari to Agfa Laboratories in Germany for color processing, but the pictures were far too pale. Otherwise, this could well have been India's first color film. The honor again went to Irani's Kishan Kanya. After Padosi in 1941, V. Shantaram and his partners parted ways and he founded Raj Kamal Kala Mandir in Bombay, which was one of the finest studios of its time. V. Shantaram and his companions were essentially artists, which helped them project Indian culture so well in films. It is only because of such grooming that films like Jhanak Jhanak Payal Baje and Navrang were made possible. Though these films brought V. Shantaram into the limelight and gave him a distinct identity among all the filmmakers, these films were not a sudden development. They were, in many ways, an extension of what he had been doing for the past 30 years. For instance, he had made Shakuntala in 1943 and Amar Jyoti 7 years before that in 1936. In Amar Jyoti, he had used silhouettes to convey many dance mudras. This was something not attempted on the big screen earlier. The film gave an early notice that here was a filmmaker who honored the time-tested Indian arts and was prepared to make them popular even among those who did not initially understand them. However, for all his lasting fascination with films steeped in classical notes, it would be grossly unfair to stereotype V. Shantaram as a filmmaker of only such kind of movies. He was a versatile artist, a man who understood music and dance, but he was also alive to the emerging problems of the young nation. If he made Jhanak Jhanak Payal Baje in 1955, he followed it up with Do Aankhein Bara Haath, a film with a completely different theme that required serious, stark treatment. He did not follow the stereotype and opted to make the film in black and white, as the subject was quite intense and needed such a projection. This film about reformative justice did wonders at the box office and presented the nation with another face of curative justice. Similarly, a little after independence, V. Shantaram focused on another malady afflicting the society, that of dowry, which made marriage difficult and perfidy easy. He said it all through a film called Dahej, which he made in 1949. Thanks to Dahej, the anti-dowry bill was passed by the Bihar Assembly. On more or less the same lines, a few years before India got its tryst with destiny, V. Shantaram made Padosi, which was all about Hindu-Muslim unity, at a time when there were communal riots in many parts of the country. Amazingly, his films have a timeless touch to them. For instance, it is fashionable these days to talk of corruption in public life, but V. Shantaram had made Apna Desh immediately after independence. Apna Desh tackled the subject of corruption with the director going for the jugular in a no-nonsense way. As a filmmaker, V. Shantaram had no peers. He had his own strong thought process, his ideology, yet he was open to discussion, debate, even divergent views. For instance, after the trial show of Navrang, the discussion on the film continued for 3 days at his home, and V. Shantaram was happy to play a liberal, giving all the youngsters full opportunity to express themselves even when they had reservations about the film. Yet V. Shantaram was a perfectionist too, and a man who did not okay a shot unless he was absolutely satisfied that it could not have been done better. He gave complete attention to detail and patiently went through the exhausting process of pre-production, rehearsals and workshops, etc. He took no shortcuts while preparing for a film, which later helped him while shooting, as things would almost naturally fall into place. In many ways, it was unheard of in those days when many filmmakers had stories written on the sets. It was this zeal for perfection that drove all those associated with him in his movies. For instance, Sandhya, the heroine of Jhanak Jhanak and other films, learned Kathak for a year prior to the film's shooting, and even during the gap in shooting, she used to do rehearsals. V. Shantaram was a team player, though happy to be its captain. With the likes of Mahipal, Vasant Desai, Bharat Vyas, and Gopi Krishna, he formed a formidable team where each member stayed honest to the group. And the films they did together were like a theatre troupe, which would eat, sing, and dance together. When the films were conceived, every member gave freely of his knowledge, spoke openly even if he had apprehensions, and later even helped out during the shooting. This ensured that not only the group enjoyed each other's success, but also that the films they did together were masterpieces. Vasant Desai and Bharat Vyas gave off their very best to V. Shantaram's films and somehow could not reproduce the magic elsewhere. Such was the genius of V. Shantaram. In newly independent India, he spoke the language of Bharat, showed a mirror to a society exposing its own shortcomings, and he did so without a sermon, without blood or gore. The nation owes him a debt of gratitude.
You were listening to a special film-based program from our archives. This program came to you from the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. You are with us on the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.
You are with us on the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. We now bring you today's commentary, Indian Railways on Fast Track Towards Modernization. It is scripted by Yogesh Sood, journalist, and read by Kaushik Rai. Indian Railways has set a target of going completely green by becoming a net zero carbon emitter by 2030 through various initiatives, including electrification of broad gauge, improving energy efficiency, and switching to renewable sources. It has also set a goal of electrification of all routes on broad gauge by December 2030. Railway electrification, improving energy efficiency of locomotives and trains and fixed installations, green certification for installations or stations, fitting bio-toilets in coaches and switching to renewable sources of energy are part of its strategy of achieving this net zero carbon emission. Recently addressing the captains of Indian industry, Minister of Railways Piyush Goyal said railways will move to 100% electrification in the next 3.5 years and 100% net zero operator in the next 9 to 10 years. By 2030, each one of us will be a proud citizen owning the world's first large clean railways. Prime Minister has promoted One Sun, One World, One Grid. India is taking the lead role in the international renewable community. Transitioning into the international solar grid is something we are all working on. Railways, besides possessing remarkable resource mobilization capabilities and disciplined manpower, have demonstrated agility and ingenuity to cater to completely new requirements that arose in India's fight against COVID-19. It played a crucial part in maintaining the supply of essential items and helping livelihoods by stepping up the transportation of goods such as food grains, milk and dairy products, farm produce and medicines by changing the traditional traffic routes wherever required, aggregating small parcels and operating parcel cargo trains, and transporting critical medical equipment and personal protection equipment (PPE). Indian Railways has leveraged its resources and demonstrated the capability to manufacture PPE, ventilators, hospital beds and COVID-19 isolation coaches. It has also used its outreach to distribute food and rations in far-flung regions. The ingenuity came alive in operating Anaconda trains, which are thrice the standard size, and the launch of Setu, a one-stop helpline for parcel traffic to bridge the gaps in the supply chain. It has helped that Indian Railway remain ahead of others on the IT curve, with almost all of its freight and passenger operations as well as customer service being completely online. For the Indian Railways, one of the largest organizations in the country, operating not just trains for passengers and freight but also social institutions such as hospitals and schools, it represents a radical change. According to World Bank, in 2018, India had 68,443 route kilometers of railway network. It is amongst the 4 largest rail networks in the world, along with the United States, China and Russia, although every kilometer of track in India covers geographical area much less than Germany, Russia, China or Canada, indicating scope for expansion. Train services operated by Indian Railways cover several classes of passengers, meeting the social service obligation to connect to remote locations and adopting the philosophy of a cross-subsidy for passengers in low-cost trains through higher freight tariffs. Indian Railways has completed electrification of more than 40,000 route kilometers. It is working to harness potential of 500 megawatt energy through rooftop solar panels. Indian Railways has decided to leverage new technology to improve the efficiency of the system in order to run more trains. One such initiative is the Real-Time Train Information System (RTIS), which is used to track the location of trains in real time through GPS devices installed in the locomotives. Recently, Indian Railways has decided to invite private sector participation in running passenger trains. Indian Railways has launched the process of opening up train operations to private entities on 109 origin-destination (OD) pairs of routes using 151 modern trains. It has invited requests for qualification proposals for scrutiny of vendor capabilities from those who can bring modern trains for operations on existing rail infrastructure. The present move takes another step towards competing passenger train operations, bringing new generation trains and attracting investments of an estimated 30 billion Indian rupees. That was today's commentary entitled Indian Railways on Fast Track Towards Modernization. It was scripted by Yogesh Sood, journalist, and read by Kaushik Rai.
This commentary came to you from the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.
This broadcast came to you from the digital channel of the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.